Hello, everyone. My name is Catarina Marques Rodrigues. I am an event specialist for Define AI, and we are here today for the second edition of AI Talks. It's a series of conversations that Define AI is addressing to discuss the latest trends, challenges, and also opportunities in adopting artificial intelligence across various areas. So in the first edition of the AI Talks, we discussed live in Lisbon how AI is being adopted by the banking industry. So if you missed it, all the panels are available in our YouTube channel, Define AI, and we have also several highlights in our LinkedIn page, so please check them out. But today, we are going to talk about a very hot topic now, ChatGPT. It's a large language model that came out in November 2022, a free tool, highly responsive generative AI. But this time we are going to look to ChatGPT from the lens of the CEOs. What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And for this panel, we will hear the expertise, the knowledge, and the thoughts of three big CEOs. We have with us Vasco Pedro. He is the CEO of Unbubble, where he and his team are trying to eliminate language barriers by combining machine translation and human post editing. Vasco has also a PhD in language technologies. We have also with us Reb Meadows, CEO of AI Foundation, a dual commercial and non-profit organization with a vision to bring the potential of AI to everyone in the world so we can all participate fully in the future. And we have also with us Asha Saxena. She is an AI scientist, founder and CEO of Women Leaders in Data and AI. She is also a professor at Columbia University in New York City and the author of the bestseller, The AI Factor. And to moderate this amazing panel, we have with us Daniela Braga. She is the founder and CEO of Define AI. So let's bring Daniela to the stage to start this amazing conversation. Daniela, welcome and thank you for AI Talks.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you to my guests of today. It's a pleasure and an honor to have three CEOs of AI companies in the hype of the moment. We're living the summer of AI. And without further ado, I'm going to dive into the hot topics of today, ChatGPT through the lenses of AI CEOs. And I would love to start with you, Asha. You said in an interview in February, and quote, "I'm really excited about the time we're living and how ChatGPT, generative AI, has changed the way we're engaging with artificial intelligence now. I'm super excited about the time we live in today." With all the concerns that are being addressed, Asha, what excites you more about ChatGPT? And I'm going to add another layer about are we already in AGI? Also because I heard you on a coffee hour on Monday saying we are already in AGI, artificial general intelligence. I want to hear your thoughts on these two questions.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm always happy and excited to talk about artificial intelligence. I've spent 30 years in technology, building a data management consulting firm, e-commerce, and my last company was a healthcare software company, analytics company. And I tell you, we've been doing data work for a long time, and artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. In 1950s, Dartmouth Science Lab actually had been working with artificial intelligence, but really recently, the commercialization of AI is a lot more, or the use of AI is a lot more than ever before. And it really happened because of big data. Web 2, Web 1, I talk about Web 1 when it was decentralized. Everybody had their own website as just a promotional website where it was one directional. People used and consumed the information in Web 1. But Web 2, 2.0 was really more about consolidating data. We entered into the era where Google and Facebook was consolidating the data. And then we come into, and that created the big data revolution, where we were collecting data, more data every day than we collected in many, many years. And now we're in Web 3, where we're saying, let's own our own data. So what happened between Web 2.0 and Web 3 is really the data has powered these algorithms to become stronger and more accurate. And I'm really excited about now than ever before, because now we can actually use artificial intelligence, not just in labs, but in commercial purposes. ChatGPT in November, when it came out, within 5 days, they had 1 million users, and everybody's talking about that. And what happened with that? Common man understood what AI was and what the power of AI was. Before that, I would say, the four of us who are in the world of data knew what data could do with the algorithms. But ChatGPT brought AI in forefront of every business. I work with many large corporations, and I have large banks, and I'm talking to the C-suite, and they're telling me that how they all are really sitting down and trying to figure out how they can use generative AI in their business. So the conversations are becoming more real. Remember, technology used to be, engineers would work on technology and it would go on the shelf, and adoption was hard. And now with ChatGPT, everybody wants to get their hands dirty. So that's why I'm excited about AI. As a scientist, as an engineer, it's so nice to see when and that's what we get excited about, when as we create something and people can use for good. And so that's what makes me excited. Very interesting question which you asked about ANI and AGI. And just for the people who don't understand what that is, I just want to kind of mention what that is really. Artificial narrow intelligence, which we call ANI, is really machine learning. So when you see Netflix or Amazon doing recommendation engines, that's artificial narrow intelligence. That's where we look at the data, we give recommendation, we prioritize, we cluster. And the next generation of AI is really artificial general intelligence, which is we talk about when machines become intelligent enough to be able to give you feedback, have a conversation. So it would be more like chatbots, and that's why ChatGPT kind of falls into the AGI. And then we move into artificial superintelligence, which is ASI, where now machines will become conscious. So those are the big three types of artificial intelligence which we are engaged in. And now we're kind of moving very quickly from narrow to general. And that's what I think you heard me talk about in the coffee hour, where I kind of touched upon those three pieces. And I think the narrow was where we used it, Siri, Alexa, Netflix recommendation engine. So we all knew about it, but now we are really talking about it because it's on our fingertips.
Yes, that's so cool. We're at the same level of intelligence as humans right now.
Yeah.
Mashko, in an interview about automatic translations, you said, and quote, "Automatic translations based on AI are here to stay, but the human factor will still be relevant. The success of an interaction depends on the interpretation, and that depends on factors like age, culture, gender, etc." End of quote. So will the customers prefer to talk to a human than to a bot? Yes or no? And how is ChatGPT going to change this interaction, if it will or not?
Yeah. It's as you can imagine, it's probably all of us. I've been spending a huge amount of time over the last couple of months talking about ChatGPT, general models, both externally and internally. And the first thing I think is important to say is I haven't met anyone that could clearly, that really clearly felt or saw this coming before ChatGPT. Even we have, it's not just me, but we have really amazing researchers at Unravel. We were working with transformers, with generative models, with language models for the last 3 years. And everyone was kind of blindsided by ChatGPT, right? And so I think it was very hard. Nobody really expected when you got to that size, suddenly the performance would be at this level, right? And I'm saying this because what I've been finding is, I find, human brains tend to function on a linear way, right? So we don't tend to do exponential predictions, which means that we tend to overestimate or underestimate outcomes. And I feel this is definitely that case, right? Where it's like, I am going to predict the future, but it's going to be a linear prediction. But at this point, I'm looking at the recent path and feeling like I just seen an exponential outcome and really didn't apply to my previous prediction, right? So what I'm saying is, if you look right now at GPT-4, right, we've done extensive analysis inside of Babel. From a machine translation perspective, is at the level of DeepL or Google Translate. So, you know, if DeepL and Google Translate haven't solved machine translation, so doesn't ChatGPT. At the same time, the level is really good, right? And at the same time, people are interacting on a daily basis, and it's giving them more confidence to interact with machines. And when you interact from a chatbot perspective with ChatGPT, I mean, it is incredibly human, right? And in fact, you see a lot of use cases like people using it as a psychologist, and it's showing levels of perceived empathy that rival or surpass humans in many ways, right? So there's many people that right now would rather spend hours talking to a ChatGPT powered psychologist than a human psychologist. So when we talk about do people prefer talking to machines or humans, I think people prefer to talk to entities that both satisfy their needs, whatever their needs are in the moment. And I think we're at a point where some of those needs are actually better met by machines than humans. And I think, you know, we are very driven by fulfilling our needs. And whenever there's an option, like for example, an example for me that I've been thinking is supermarkets, right? So a lot of times I prefer to go to an automated cashier, right? But others I don't. And if I look at what are the split of that is whatever fits best for that particular time, right? Typically, if I have a bunch of things, the human is still more efficient in sorting through, weighing stuff and so on. But if I have a few items, definitely I don't want to interact with a human. So it's not the interaction with the human that's giving me pleasure, is whatever is the outcome that most fulfills my need at the moment. I think until now, we didn't have the same ability on anything that required human interaction. And I think ChatGPT is providing that in a lot of cases. So I think it will be very interesting. It's a bit controversial, but I predict that, for example, in the next 5 years, you will have 25% of teenagers thinking and preferring to interact with some sort of large language model as a friend rather than other humans, because the large language model is more empathic, more supportive, more positive. You know, it's always there. It never gets annoyed. It explains things. It does jokes and a bunch of other stuff. And if you asked me a year ago, I'd say there's no way that's possible, right? Like, forget it. Humans are going to be humans. And now I'm like, you know what? Like, that's now up for debate.
And on that note, Rob, because you've been building digital avatars, I'm going to open quote from you. You can have a digital AI version of yourself. The short-term goal is to have digital versions of famous celebrities to teach or coach people in place of real deal. Eventually, the AI Foundation hopes to let anyone create AI versions of themselves. You can record your aging grandfather and present their memories forever. And this is, you also were famous to create the digital avatar of Deepak Chopra, which was awesome. So while this is applied to digital avatars, which is a form of generative models, how is ChatGPT going to intersect in this industry of virtual humans and make relationships and humans connections last or not, just like Vasco was saying?
Yeah, super exciting time. I mean, we always thought this idea of making it possible for everyone to have their own AI would take 10 years. I think the large language models, ChatGPT, really just kind of accelerated all of that. So last week we launched AI.xyz, which is the $20 a month version of what we previously charged hundreds of thousands or millions to do with some of the celebrities previously. So super excited about that. I'd offer an opposing view on, are we at AGI? I won't argue with the artificial or the general part, but I don't think these large language models fit many people's definition of intelligence. To the extent the zombie is intelligent, that is saying convincing words maybe, but I think there's another layer we need to get to where intelligence means we understand what we're doing, we understand what we're saying, we have more of a purpose, more of a self-awareness, etc. So I think this is a exciting step in a direction. It's, to me, these large language models are the new web interface. You know, back in late 90s, everybody had to have a website, and that's how you're going to interact with the company. Now everybody's going to have a chatbot, and chatbots are going to have to change the stigma of being the most annoying thing on the planet to the preferred way to interact with every business, every service. And what we want is ultimately every person. So if you have your own AI as a tool, what can it do for you? Can it write code for you? Can it go find shopping for you? Can it remind you to do things? Can it brainstorm with you? Can it cheer you up when you feel bad? But also, what can your AI do with other people's AIs? Can it go out there and discover knowledge and friends and, you know, relationships for you? Can it go out and, you know, take tasks off your plate where you can go out and enjoy life and do the things you want to do while your AI does the work? So that's kind of the future we're moving toward. And I think ChatGPT and other large language models are a huge exponential leap toward that. I agree with what Vasco said there.
So Asha, you just launched the AI Factor in February, which has been a bestseller on Amazon. And the subtitle is How to Apply Artificial Intelligence and Use Big Data to Grow Your Business Exponentially. Tell us how, if you were thinking about ChatGPT when you were writing this or not.
I was not. I started this journey. You know, writing a book takes time, and during pandemic, it was really the time to reflect and think about my career. I've had 30 years of my career in data and analytics and machine learning, and so my whole thought was every time I would meet either customers or CEOs, they would ask me, "We've got data. What do we do with that?" And so the purpose of the book was during the pandemic that everybody's going digital, and how can organizations or businesses use data effectively to build their machine learning models or use AI in some format. The whole era of data science really had started. So my intention was to really put together a book in a very easy story-like manner where business leaders can understand technology and can use the technology frameworks to implement data and AI projects. I also wanted, this book is also intentional for technology leaders so they can understand what business needs are and really align technology to the business to make sure that they can bring the maximum value. A lot of times when you're building technology, usually engineers get so excited and wrapped around the technology that they forget what the business implication is. And so the purpose of the book was really to make sure that as we build technology, we are building the technology for good. You know, I have a whole chapter dedicated on responsible and ethical AI and ethical practices. But really the goal was to figure out, to provide frameworks and methodologies for business leaders and technology leaders to really take step-by-step process to implement machine learning or AI within their organization to create productivity.
Show us your book.
Oh my God, yes, I have it right here. So you can get this on Amazon. And I would love, if you have read this book, please give me feedback.
And we can be absolutely sure that ChatGPT did not write it because it wasn't there yet.
Yeah. That would be an interesting experiment, but yeah, I wrote it in 2020.
I know. I'm kidding. I mean, these days, ChatGPT is passing medical exams. So
I know. And they're saying that a ChatGPT can write your whole script, movie scripts, and yeah.
Exactly.
But you know, Daniela, yesterday I was talking at a conference here at IST in Lisbon about obviously ChatGPT, right? And we had the same question about is this intelligence? And I agree with Rob. It's like, well, that's not exactly what we understand of intelligence. Someone kind of had a good point, which is, look, if you have this thing that is passing engineering exams, and if you give it any kind of physics question that we throw at our, graduate students and he can answer, at which point, like if he keeps answering everything correct, at which point, like we have to start thinking maybe it is someone, like it's very hard to not think of it as intelligent, right? It was very interesting to look at the audience and some of the stuff they were saying and like from the perspective of a, let's say, not even normal human, but like an academic crowd of professors, that the behavior that they were seeing and interacting with was making it hard for them to not define it as intelligence in some way, right? It's like, how long until if it's saying everything you expect it to, and it answers everything you wanted, until, how long until you're like, okay, there's some sort of intelligence, even though we know that it's just predictive, right? It's essentially just predicting the next word, but that is the thing that is so staggeringly incredible. Is like, how can something that is just predicting the next word behave in the emerging ways that we're seeing, right? It's stunning.
I think people will keep raising the bar for what is intelligence here. When we taught an AI to play chess, that was the holy grail. Like, if an AI could beat a human in chess, that's AI. Well, no, that's actually not AI anymore. That's just like a good algorithm, Turing test, etc. I think as we blow past this, I think what's going to happen is, people are going to become less impressed with the writing of a large language model and be able to kind of sense the pattern of, yeah, this is kind of like average work, and hopefully it just pushes the bar of what does it mean really to be more intelligent than an AI. And
so I used to have this discussion a lot, Rob, on because we used to say like, oh, we want to show our AI, right? And we had this very difficult challenge of how do we show AI? What is intelligence? So we spent a lot of time in Bell trying to figure out how do we show this, and I had this strong debate. And I had very much an opinion. It's like, look, AI is this thing that somehow makes us feel like, if we really have AI, like when we really get AI going, it will feel like a human learning, right? So there's a component of learning, of being able to express themselves and having a learning like a human. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was using ChatGPT for something, and it did some things that I was like, I remember like I had a name of a company, and I said, okay, to give you more companies like this, and it suggested a bunch of companies and segmented it into categories, and then I took some of those companies, said, okay, now expand this into something else, and the reason kept going, and at some point, it kind of referred the first company I'd mentioned early on, right? And I hadn't mentioned it; it wasn't in the conversation anymore, and it somehow, once it mentioned it, put in parentheses, by the way, you're already working with this company. And it just little details that it kind of blew me away of like, it really felt like he had learned something and it was now incorporating in the reasoning, and even though I know that's not exactly what's happening, right? No. You anthropomorphize it very quickly, right? So at this point, and at some point, by raising the bar, and we're gonna have to raise the bar of what intelligence means in humans as well, right? Because there's realistically a bunch of humans that are not nearly as intelligent, right? Not able to do that, right?
On that note,
it's complicated.
How are you using ChatGPT? If it sounds like, how are you using it? Is it more to test the capabilities, or you're actually incorporating it in your business?
No, in our case, we're starting to incorporate in our business. Not so much like actually in the core aspect and some of the translation stuff, right? So initially we tested it. Then the obvious thing is like, okay, well, if this is an alternative to other machine translation engines, great, let's do it. I think obviously brings risks for us, which is we've spent a significant amount of money and a lot of time developing our AI. And now what it means is a lot of our competitors can potentially develop similar things with much less effort. What we're leveraging is, okay, it also means that we can develop things faster, right? So within translation, there's the translation bit of like, here's some text translated to something else, but there is actually a lot of accessories and adjacent functions that benefit this, like fix the source, right? Or, correct the formality level, or figuring out anonymization, or a few other things, right? And there are some areas that we haven't been able to work to devote a lot of resources to it, like source correction is an example, that we can now do it much more easily, right? So we're starting to leverage it not just for the actual translation component, but we're starting to generate other modules that automate, that enable us to tackle different parts of the process that we hadn't been able to really focus on. And now we can do it because we don't need this much investment. But we're not doing it yet. We're not using it yet in areas that I think are going to be, we're going to see that a lot going forward. Like I was just having this conversation yesterday. Someone was saying that a friend of them had, like a company, I don't remember the name of the company. They had like 1,000 content creators and they had fired 850. So basically 85% of the content creators, because the last 15% now are going to generate content by correcting ChatGPT, which makes sense, right? You're basically amplifying massively the productivity of every human that uses it. But the impact that's going to have, I think, is the potential of a lot of jobs suddenly disappearing, right? And I've had this discussion with Daniela many times. I tend to be very much on the positive side of AI. I know it's all going to be great. But for the first time, I'm seeing, like, even though it's something I've been working for my entire life, I am seeing that there's a risk of changes in society that are so fast that it's going to be hard to cope with, right? And that presents realistic risks.
I love that
might not be,
segue.
yeah.
And segue to Rob. What are the risks and challenges for society?
Don't worry, you'll have your own AI to help you cope with those risks and that change. You know, AI can handle it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of dangers here. You know, for us, we've, you know, used traditional NLP approaches and intents and embeddings and all that type of stuff. We kind of layer the large language model on top of that, and now you get this like very human feeling interaction that's new every time. And, you know, to your point, you can pull in past things you've talked about, whether it's just in the recent set of tokens or you pull in additional embedding. So it's this actually very dangerous. And when we now put a face and a voice on it, and actually the avatar piece of it is become less important at this point. The voice is really interesting. We have this kind of real-time ability to clone somebody's voice, and it's very human sounding. So now you take words that are very human sounding, put it in a voice that's very human sounding, and even though you know this is not real, your subconscious, you know, takes those cues, and it's just more of a human interaction. So I think a lot of the risks are just educating people on, you know, this may feel very human, this may feel very convincing, but here's how it works. You know, being transparent on the type of data that's being used to generate this response, educating people that, you know, this AI doesn't really have a goal or a motivation, or, you know, don't try to put more of a meaning on what you're hearing. This is just an interface. I think that's really important. I don't think this is going to, you know, get rid of a lot of jobs in the sense that there will be no jobs to replace them. I think this will follow historical, you know, AI just becomes a tool to do your job in a maybe more productive, maybe more, you know, interesting, engaging way, but probably just a more creative, more strategic way. Let these tools, let these AI models go do the little things and keep track of all of the noise that's hitting you and go get data, while I can kind of be more strategic. So maybe every job now has 3 AIs reporting to them, but I don't think that eliminates those jobs. I think it 10x's revenue of every company.
Very well. How about we go around the table for final remarks on ChatGPT opportunities and ethics? Are we covering our bases on ethics, on the ethics front? Asha.
So first of all, I have to close the loop on the AGI conversation Rob and Vasco was having. And I do believe that they both are right, because Rob, I agree with you that what is the definition of intelligent? Is chatbot really intelligent? But I also agree with Vasco that when a chatbot can truly understand and engage with you intelligently, then it's crossing the borderline of narrow to general. So I think both perspectives are right. What we need to really, as technologists and as engineers, we are building these technologies. What we need to understand and remember is that the consumer who's using this technology, for them, AI includes data science, machine learning, deep learning. So when they're building their departments or when they're building their own AI practices within their organization, it's important for them to remember that they build the pieces correctly. And Daniela, you're in data world. You know how important having the right foundation is. So I can't emphasize understanding the methodology, understanding the frameworks, understanding how you create the plumbing when you're building AI is critical. You know, you're in narrow, you're in general, you really need to make sure that the data you're working with is secure. The data which you're working with the data definitions are clear. You have the governance of the data, you have the security and privacy. And I'm going to lead to, Daniela, your question, the ethics. really important when you work with the data. Listen, I founded and built an organization called Women Leaders in Data and AI because I freaked out during the pandemic when I was writing the book. And I had this realization, oh my God, we are building these models which are going to take the biases of the world and code it and exponentially expand on it. So how do we really focus on responsible and ethical AI? And listen, whatever we code, it's going to emphasize our biases. So if we don't consciously think about, is our data diverse? Do we have the right data set? Are we looking at what we are working with? Do we have the diverse thoughts on our team? Do we have people who can challenge that this data is not good enough? Do we have diversity in our teams? Do we have different gender, different ages, different color? So people can actually represent the data set that is being worked on the models. Are the models accurate? And remember, technologies really for our benefit. Humans are controlling right now these models. How are we engaging with these models, positively or negatively? So it really depends upon humans who are coding these algorithms to do it effectively. And I think every person who's either a builder, creator, or a consumer has to take this seriously, that we truly have to work with this technology for good and not for bad. You know, I was visiting Bern, Switzerland, and I got to visit Albert Einstein's home, and I was reading his life story. And when he talks about his biggest mistake was to write the letter to Roosevelt when he spoke about the atom bomb, and he had no idea how it would be used. So I think we are intelligent beings. How we use technology depends upon us, and we need to seriously take this blessing, this opportunity. I said earlier, I'm excited about it, but I also think this exciting time comes with responsibility on all of us. It's not just me and you or the technologist here, but it's responsibility for all who are using this technology to use it effectively.
Vasco, and you are running a whole track of responsible AI in Portugal, in a Portugal government fund too. So tell us how you're handling responsibility in AI.
I mean, to be honest, I think nobody really knows how to enforce that in something like a large language model quite yet, right? I think there was a couple of things that I thought was interesting. Like, if you take something as simple as permissions, right? Like the idea that someone has permissions to know something and someone doesn't, how do you even teach that to ChatGPT, right? Like you can tell this to person X, but not to person Y because of access, right? Or if you look at the AI regulation that was being thought through in Europe, right? There was the AI Act that hasn't been voted, but has been worked on for 5 years. They had the pyramid of AI applications where on the top is like stuff that you can't work on, like the human identification through data, through facial recognition. You had stuff that was like considered risky, and so you had to be very regulated, and then it kept going into like stuff you can do whatever you want. ChatGPT can do all of it, right? So how do you actually classify it, right? There's suddenly like the entire regulation they've been thought of is like blown away. I don't know how they're going to solve it, right? So it's so new that we're still really trying to think about this. And then you layer on top of that stuff like Auto GPT and other agent stuff. I think it's going to be complicated, right? So as you mentioned, we're leading the Responsible AI Consortium. I think it is a super important topic. I think that, having unbiased data sets is key, but it's not just that anymore, right? Is really trying to understand how do we put guardrails on a technology that has become so powerful that it's going to be hard to control and easy. Like there's so many examples of ChatGPT where, for example, the situation where you ask it to give you a list of something and it says, oh, I can't because it violates something. You said, okay, look, I really don't want to violate it. Can you make sure you give me a list of things just so I don't violate those? It's like, oh, sure, here it is, right? There's so many ways to work around it that it's really hard to put effective guardrails on this kind of AI. At least we don't know yet, right? So maybe it's fine tuning and within the certain guardrails, maybe it's something else, but we're kind of back a little bit to square one on how do we now do this responsibly given the speed of evolution.
Rob, last words, and is there off limits? Are there off limits in these technologies?
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing about ChatGPT is not so much the amazing things that happen when we throw way too much data, way too much compute at a transformer. I actually think what was impressive to me was the speed of adoption, and like everyone on TikTok is now a prompt engineering expert and is sharing their knowledge about how you take advantage of these types of models. So I think that is actually a huge boost in the right direction toward making these things ethical. People now are educated enough, or at least a good amount of them, to know what questions to ask. So to me, I think the future here of ethical use of these types of models and beyond is all comes down to transparency. So we've had conversations. Should we let people actually be able to see the prompt that just caused the output from your AI's mouth to happen? For a lot of companies, that prompt construction is a lot of our IP. For a company like Jasper, that's pretty much all of their IP, like what's a creative prompt. And we put a lot of work into basically hiding that prompt so people can't, trick the AI into telling it what was written above in the tokens. But maybe the other side of it is that has to be transparent to everybody using these models, and even fine-tune models. Maybe it should be transparent what was the data that was used to fine-tune these models, and that privacy. How do you actually keep data private? So we've done a lot of work there around training multiple versions of the models. Here's you that knows what you know when you're talking to your own AI. Here's you that is okay talking to the public, and that self-awareness. To me, that's what intelligence, the next level of intelligence, is going to need to have: self-awareness and attention to the meaning of what it's saying, and some ability to kind of control what it says. So yeah, I think we have a bright future here. I think this is just the very beginning, and like everyone said here, it's just going to get harder from here, but more fun and more impressive.
Thank you so much to my guests. This has been an honor and a lot of fun. It's so hard to get all of us together in the same time. And without further ado, Katerina, please close the session.
Thank you very much. There was a lot of ideas shared here. We are living in an exciting time, as Rob said, in which common people are understanding the power of AI and what they can do with it, as Asha also pointed out. But there are also some needs that now are better met by machines than humans, Vasco Pedro believes. So there were a lot of things shared here, including the risks that we are living in, but also the opportunities and the benefits of ChatGPT for business, but also for all of us. This was the second edition of AI Talks, and Defined AI is going to continue to address these topics. The next edition, the third edition, is going to be in Web Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in May the 2nd. So hope to meet you all there, but if not, follow us in our social media channels, in which we are going to share all of the highlights so that we can be all together in these talks, in which we are trying and continue to define the future together. Thank you very much.